Welcome to the Homesteading for Beginners podcast. This is Mona Weathers, your host. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for the reviews that I've been getting. Thank you so much, those of you who have taken time to leave the reviews. If you're new here, thank you for listening. This is not my normal voice, or at least I don't think it's my normal voice. I have been sick, and this is the end of my sickness, but my voice is starting to go out. So I'm going to do my best to not sound terrible as I share today. And today I'm going to talk about the past 21 years of our homesteading journey and how we got to where we are now, and the mindset shifts that I had to make, and just some really good stuff that you should be able to take some really good nuggets out of for yourself, whether you are in the dreaming stages of your journey or you are actually full on into homesteading. So looking back on the 21 or so plus years homesteading, I just remember the moment that we got our property and how excited I was to finally have my dreams come true. These were actually my dreams as a child. I wanted land, I wanted horses, I wanted all the animals. And this was the moment. I can remember it, just looking at this 2.5 acres in the mountains of California, and just thinking, this is where I get to my dreams get to be fulfilled. And I was just in awe of how much love God was pouring out on us as a family at that time. I had a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, and my youngest hadn't even been born or thought of. She came years later. But I just first want to say that I'm so grateful for where we had our journey start, and all of the years in between, the good, bad, and the ugly. I was not always a positive person. And a lot of my years were spent struggling. And those were growing pains. Those were areas that I needed to be the person I am today. Not that I'm perfect, but I had to go through some of those things. And the positive outlook came because I had a growth mindset, and I did not want to remain stagnant and just be miserable all the time. So I learned how to have a positive outlook for my future, to have a better future. It actually took me several years after I had started started my journey, that I realized there was a term for what I was doing. I did not know that homesteading was what I was doing or looking to do at that time. I just had this farm girl mentality. I just wanted to be a farm girl. I wanted to have the animals and all the things, and I wanted to have a garden, but I didn't realize it was a term. Well, my husband and I just wanted a small farm. My husband, Joe, I don't know if I've mentioned his name before, but his name is Joe, and he grew up the homesteading life with his parents on their 2.5 acres. And I basically wanted what he grew up with, which is his dad had a garden, they had fruit trees, they had some animals that they raised for meat, but it was all on a small scale and it was all mostly for their family. And I just wanted to be able to do that. I actually remember the day that I had the conversation with one of my friends about the word homesteading. And we were having this conversation, and I was describing what I was doing. I was describing my my goals for the property. And she said, "Oh, okay, you're talking about homesteading." And I was like, "I am." Like, I didn't really realize I was talking about homesteading, or I didn't realize there was a term for it outside of farm girl. And it was just a really funny conversation. It was just like this moment in time where I remember, like, now I'm on a journey, and I now I know what it is, what it's called. And so I did the thing where I went on Google and learned as much as I could about this lifestyle called homesteading. And of course, this was modern homesteading and not homesteading from the Homestead Act. So after my friend shared this, I went on this rabbit trail. I learned as much as I could about homesteading and what people were doing at that time. And that's, eventually Healthy Homesteading was born, which is my website, healthyhomesteading.com. But those friends, the friend that I'm mentioning, is her name is Leslie, and her husband name is Adam, and they have a business called Be Kept, and you may have heard them because Adam is taught at the Homesteaders of America conference. He's taught at his natural beekeeping methods. Anyway, it's just funny to think that I didn't even know what I was doing when I started, and I just kept doing the thing that I wanted to do, and then I discovered that there was an actual whole movement, a whole modern homesteading. So there are 3 stages that I feel like I've been through on my homesteading journey, and you might be able to identify you in one of these stages as well. So I would say the first stage was the building a homesteader mindset stage, which was included all the things that understanding what it took to be a homesteader, and the idea that I wanted to produce more and consume less. And for us, it included buying the land for us to have, to continue this mindset on, to expand. And then the second stage would be the building a homestead stage, like building the skills, building the actual property up. And this was the large portion of our homesteading journey. The largest portion of our homesteading journey so far is the years where I was, building up my skills, learning how to do all the things, and just really enjoying the lifestyle. I did have some times where I overdid it, but this was the stage where I learned a lot in a short amount of time. Now we're in the third stage of our homesteading journey, which is the rebuilding stage. And not everyone has to go through this. Some people will go through this even if they don't move. Their priorities change and they want to do something different but stay in the lifestyle. This happens when your kids grow up and move out of the house and you have less need for certain things. So you may be in the rebuilding stage if you happen to be listening this, uh, and you're in the rebuilding stage. This is where I'm at right now, where we're starting over. We are starting over from scratch because we moved from one state to another. But the mindset part, I didn't have to rebuild that, obviously. I did have to really do a lot of heart and soul searching to find out what it is I really want to do this time around. But I'm still a homesteader. That never left me, even though there was years in between us owning our property in California and us owning our property here in Georgia, that we weren't doing really any homesteading things. So I didn't stop being a homesteader just because I didn't have the property. Um, so that's the stage I'm in right now. We're really trying to decide, how much we want to do here. How do we want to rebuild our property? And so I'm going to go into a little bit more detail of all these stages of my journey, and to help you possibly, shape your homesteading life the way you want it to be, and maybe take some nuggets of knowledge that I've had, some experience that you can take with you as you move forward. So the first stage of my journey, I didn't even know about the modern homesteading journey for most of it. Like the beginning stages, I didn't even know that's what I was doing. So I didn't know that there was this whole other world of people that were emerging and coming up, wanting the same thing. I just knew I wanted to live in the country, raise animals, grow a garden. I had never lived in the country before our property in California. I moved a lot around as a kid. I lived in Hawaii. I lived in Northern California, Frankfurt, Germany, Southern California again. And we moved around. And within those states and in Germany, we moved around a lot within each place that I lived. So putting down roots was just not a thing I got to do. The longest run I had was when we lived in Northern California and then Southern California. So California, I lived in most of my life, but it was still hard for me because we moved around a lot. So the idea of building a permanent home was very appealing to me, and I really wanted our home in California to be the home that we lived in, like till we died, got old. My husband and I got old, sitting on the front porch I mean, I had visions of us doing that on that property, and we really loved living there. As a child, I daydreamed of living on a farm, like I've mentioned many times, with my horses and my other farm animals. And so, as I was building my homestead in the second stage of my journey, the idea of having a lot of animals was very exciting to me. I wanted as many as I could have. So and that's where my excitement got a little out of hand, and I pretty much tried to do all of the things. I ended up having like uh, a very overwhelming experience at times. And I really did it all to myself. I have no one to blame for myself, but I was very curious and I really wanted to learn a lot of things because I loved the lifestyle. Because I did start off slowly, I think I was just really, really ready when I got the green light to go, I was really, really ready. And it kind of got out of hand, and I kept adding things. It was a combination of wanting to know how to do things though, and also just like a little bit of FOMO, like other people were doing some things and I wanted to try that out too. But a lot of curiosity. Like I said, I just really wanted to learn these things. But what I didn't have was a sustainable mindset. I didn't understand back then that what I was doing was not going to be sustainable for very long. I had a lot of responsibilities already, and I did not need to be adding more responsibilities to my plate. Many of the things that I was trying to do were not sustainable. Like the things themselves, the way I was doing it wasn't going to keep working, and I didn't have the time or energy to do all of them. And I just didn't realize that. So I've said this many times, but do try to slow down a little bit and just make sure that you're adding the things that you're really passionate about, really see benefit to having. But I'm not upset with myself. Like I don't regret doing those things, going through that period because it did teach me a lot. I don't think you need to go through something like that to learn not to go through something like that. But many of the things that we choose to do, that we chose to do back then, I could have easily found another homesteader or a farm who were doing those things to provide that thing that I wanted. Like an example that I did end up doing was I wanted a steer to raise for meat, but our homestead was very small and we had no pasture land. So we would have had to like spend a lot of money on hay to raise a steer. But instead, I had an arrangement with a barter arrangement with a neighbor who raised beef cattle, and I traded goat milk and eggs for grass-fed beef. So it was a really amazing arrangement and it worked out really good. And I was able to have the fresh grass-fed beef and not have my own uh, cattle. So there are things like just remember that as you're going through your own journey that, I've said it many times before, but it's just worth saying again that the people around you they can provide the thing that you want and even the experiences sometimes if you get creative and offer a barter in responsibilities. So you could milk a cow for your neighbor who has the cow in exchange for them not having to milk the cow. Sometimes they'll pay you in the milk, which I've had and I have done for with our goats. So if you are in the middle stage, the second stage of your homesteading journey, where you're really learning the skills and you're tempted to add on all of these extra things. Just remember there is your community. There is, there are seasons too. You can add things, get rid of things, learn something new, and just do it that way where you're not having so many things that you're trying to learn at the same time. And now that I'm in the third stage, everything, like I mentioned before, everything is kind of changing and my needs and my wants have changed. So as I'm rebuilding, I'm learning that, what I really want. And I'm very cautious of my time. I've said that as well before. Like I'm very protective of my energy now that I'm older. And I just don't. I've been tempted to add things before we were ready, but I know now that that is just not the best decision. So it's better to be ready. And, we have not added hardly anything to our property, to our homestead in a while. We did add a little Holland Lop bunny, who will be providing fertilizer for our garden. I've been wanting a rabbit for a long time, and her name is Sunny Bunny, and she is technically my grandkids' bunny. We got her for Christmas, and they were so thrilled. But she is, providing a lot of manure right now, and that will be a great addition to my garden. But we added a few chickens a couple times. We had 7 chickens first, and then we had added 10 chickens. So at one point we had 17 chickens, but now we're back to 7. But I will be adding more things in the future. Hopefully, quail and bees. Those are two of the things I would like to add to our homestead now. Now that I've had all those years, I know where my limits are, and I know what I have the wisdom behind the desires. So even if I want it, I know that I need to pull back and really think about it, so that I don't jump in over my head and get exhausted from having so many things I have to do. So if I were to have the opportunity to start my whole journey over again with the knowledge that I have today, I would have done a few things differently. And we are rebuilding our homestead, like I mentioned, and these are things that you know these are things that I'm keeping in mind as we are rebuilding. If I had the opportunity to start my homesteading journey over again, I would do a few things differently, and I'm going to share those with you. And I've broken down into 5 different things. So since we are rebuilding our homestead, I'm actually going through some of these things right now for myself. I do have the skills, and I do have more skills now, and I know what I could pick up if I wanted to. But these are the things that you can think about as you're starting your journey or as you're continuing on with your journey. So number 1, I would have a vision for my future. I would kind of really take note of what I want in the future. And I know we won't know what we want as we grow. Our desires and wants change. But I would just, instead of just like being reactive and like, I want milk, I want goat milk, or I want milk for my family, and then going out and buying a goat, I'd be like, well, what is it? What do milking goats entail? What does it entail to have raised dairy goats? What kind of commitment is that? Do I have the energy for a long-term commitment? And the answer for you might be yes, and the motivation might be for you to be yes. But I just would would have like had more of a long-term vision for my homesteading journey. I'd ask myself what I want my future to look like, what I want to be able to do in the future, what I want to be able to know in the future. And is it really important to me that I know all of these things? Or can I just get away with being really good at a few things? Like, would I be satisfied with that? And number 2 would be doing a time and energy assessment or audit. Like I would really look into what it is I'm able to do at the moment, at the current state. So for me, is right now, like, do I have the time uh, to really do this every day, or how much time do things really take? That's another thing. I think we're very optimistic about how much time things take. So we're like, yeah, of course I can add that onto my plate. But what really ends up happening is that it really takes way longer than you think. So I'd really actually do a time assessment. Like, how long does it take for me to take care of these animals? And a way you could do that before you have your own animals is by helping another homesteader and just seeing how much time it actually takes to do some of the things that you want to do. And I'd also include some possible emergency situations. There always seems to be emergency situations when it comes to animals. So livestock tend to do some things. They get out, they get hurt, they die, they get injured. There's just so many things that can happen with livestock that you want to be sure that you have the time and energy for possible emergencies. So, and if you don't, you can always downsize and say, okay, less of these in my life would be okay too. So, do I need to purge? Do I need to downsize? Before adding anything new, let me assess my time, and my energy to see what it is I actually can add to my plan. And number 3 would be the things I don't have time for. I'd see if local community, if I've done that time assessment, I'm like, no, I don't want to. I can't raise a steer on this property without spending a lot of money. So I'd see if there was somebody local. Like I said, I had my neighbor, and we had that arrangement that could fulfill that want or that desire or that need I have. And just be very happy about the arrangement. It may not last forever, but at least you could maybe get started with some things. You can create a community of people who are regularly doing these types of things too. Similar to my beef, milk, egg arrangement, you could do something like that. And number 4 would be I'd be sure to assess every quarter of the year. So a couple episodes back, I shared goal setting and how to divide the year into 4, uh, so that you're able to reach your goals better because you're focusing on one thing at a time during a 3-month period. So I'd be sure to split my year and really be strategic about my goal setting, and then also make sure that those goals are aligned with my ultimate vision for my future. So make sure that the goals go with the flow that you want and not against it. And I've gone on rabbit trails that lead nowhere, right? We've all done it. We've all gone on these rabbit trails that lead nowhere. But if you have this vision for your future and you have a strategic way that you are, accomplishing your goals, then you'll stay, those rabbit trails will be less and less. And number 5, I'd also be sure to have a sustainable income plan that would increase profits year over year, and making sure that my time and energy aligned well with this income plan. So I've done a lot of different things over the years, and I would not say that my time and energy aligned with all of my income plans, and which is why a lot of them weren't successful, because it wasn't aligned with the lifestyle I was trying to live. And that is something I would have done because, savings plans also, that's, you want to have savings for the emergencies and that sort of thing. But to have an income plan, especially as being a stay-at-home mom, yes, it would have been, nice to be able to only concentrate on my kids and their homeschooling, but I also had other aspirations, and I like being an entrepreneur. So, but I really think it's just important, especially now in 2024 and beyond, probably, is that we need to just have this multiple income streams. And I'm not saying it has to be in a way that is causing you to take all the time away from your family, but if you could align it with your lifestyle, and that would just be the most ideal, right? So that's what I would have done. So those are the 5 things I would have done had I been able to go back and do things over again. I don't know where you are in your journey. You are somewhere on the timeline that I probably mentioned. You're in one of the stages, more than likely. So I hope these tips will help you on your journey. If you're in stage 1, you can prepare your mind. You can learn as many skills as you can in your kitchen. You don't have to have property to start your homesteading journey. Okay, you can even homestead on a small piece of property. You don't have to have property, but when you do, or if you desire to have property, you'll be prepared and you'll be ready, and you'll be able to go from knowing, you won't have to start from scratch, is what I'm saying. So if you're in stage 2 of your journey, think about your vision for your future homesteading. Like, what do you want in the future? What is the ultimate goal here? And do your time audits, do your energy audits. Do you need to let some things go? Those are some questions you can ask yourself. And if you happen to be in the 3rd stage like me, ask yourself, am I living the life I dreamed about? Am I a slave to my homestead, or is this lifestyle, can I sustain it for years to come? Have your needs changed over the years, or, like, do you need to adjust your goals? Is it maybe that now that you don't have a family anymore or small children that you're raising on the farm, maybe you can reassess and do things differently. So, you have permission to change. Not that I need to give it to you, but you do have permission to change your lifestyle. So those are the tips I have for you. I hope that was helpful. If you have any thoughts on this, I would love to hear from you. You can email me at mona@healthyhomesteading.com. Don't forget, if you're just starting your journey, to get the checklist that I have free available, and the link will be in the show notes as well. And I hope you have just a wonderful rest of your day, or whatever time you're listening to this. I hope it is wonderful. And I will talk to you next week.